Today is January 26, 2024. It is 6:02 p.m., and this is the Board of Directors meeting for the Windham School District, special meeting. And I would like to call the meeting to order. So we will start off first with public comment. Is there anyone with public comment? Okay, I don't see any hands.
Oh, you just muted yourself, Abby.
Oops, just kidding. Thank you, Bob. Moving along, any changes to the agenda? I think we're trying to really just get some bullet points regarding the timelines that we are facing as far as getting stuff in. So we kind of made it just being a Friday night and all, just the bulk of what we need. And we'll have another meeting scheduled, excuse me, for February 1st to finalize how we move forward here. So with that, is there anything anybody needs to change? Okay, hearing none. Correspondence. Bob, we weren't able to get like a superintendent's report, but I don't know if you wanted to talk about the equalization study results, or if you want to save that for another meeting.
Well, you guys actually had a superintendent's report at your last meeting. It was in the packet. It's called a cabinet report, which is sent out monthly to all board members on all the boards and all the districts in the SU. So when you're talking about the equalizations, are you talking about like what's going on with 127 right now?
I'm just looking at, yes. So
yeah, I think maybe we save that for Lori when she's talking about the budget and the implications of that might be good.
Perfect.
There's a lot happening and changing right now at the legislative level. So I'll let Lori give us a little more of an update when we do the budget.
Perfect. Any other correspondence that anybody has? Okay, moving along. I make a motion finding that premature general public knowledge regarding confidential attorney-client communications made for the purpose of providing professional legal services to the body would put the board at substantial disadvantage if discussed in public. Can I get a second? We got your Aurora, you're muted if you're on.
I second your motion.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye. 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 Okay, motion passes. I make a motion for the board to enter executive session under 1 VSA 313 with attorney Mark Ottinger under Title I, Section 313 of the Vermont Statutes Legal Consultation 313A1F. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
You have Russ's hand up, I believe.
Where's Daniel Ross?
He's away.
Oh, so it's just you and Rory.
Yeah. So this,
Right.
that's why we're going to have another meeting, because we want Daniel to be involved as much as possible, but we're also facing a time crunch. Aware of this meeting, was able to communicate with him a little bit, and so Daniel's not here tonight.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. So Bob's gonna
I'm going to turn hosting over to you, Abby, and then when you go in, you'll be able to, I believe, pause the recording at that point.
Oh, okay.
And when you come back out, pass it back to me or unpause it and then pass it back to me, whatever works, and then I'll continue to monitor the.
Did you stop the recording before I do that? Would that be
I'm going to pause it right now. Yep. Looks like we're recording again. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay. So approving financials. Do we still have Lori?
You do.
Oh, thank you, Lori. Appreciate your patience. So with the approving of financials, this was a large pay order. So I was just really hoping you can maybe just outline it for folks so that we can go through it. So I'll move to approve pay order 22.
Okay, hang on
Can
one
I get
second.
Oh, yeah, I second your motion.
okay, and the discussion, well, Lori will let
I
you kind
gotta
of,
pull it up here, so just hold on one sec.
No
sure.
problem.
Okay, here we go. So this is the pay order right here. All right. So you're doing pay order 22, right? Is that what you just said? For 49,000?
That's correct.
Okay. And that probably included, okay, so I don't have the actual pay order without getting into DocHub, but that really included the final assessments to the SU, which we adjusted, right? Because we were going to not charge you for the technology for the rest of the time and the nurse for the rest of the time, all of that. But it does reflect, the MTSS budget, the supers budget, all of that, so that is done now. That's typically we would only be doing third quarter, but because the school is closed, we've gone ahead and charged that out. So that's probably the biggest bulk of it, was just that getting things paid off. I tried to push through as much as we could, so that we could have, some good figures here in the next month or so, as to where you're going to come out for the end of the year. Tuition payment has not been made, although I have encumbered it in the budget so that it'll get paid the next time around. So that also will be a large payment out.
Excellent. Okay. Is there any further discussion from anyone with regard to that pay order? All right. So all those in favor of approving pay order 22, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And we'll get that signed for you, Lori.
Okay, and Abby, I think maybe you had the previous one to approve as well. Remember there was some issue with the DocHub and you hadn't received it, and then I emailed it and you all
Yeah.
received it.
Yep.
And that is pay order
19.
18. I think it's 18 for 7,644.32.
Okay, I will go in and double check. It does have my fancy little signature line. So
Yeah. You all did finally approve it. It was just, it is 19. Heidi's telling me it's 19.
That's the one that we never got in the email for whatever reason. Right?
Yeah, for some
Yeah.
reason, something happened to the DocHub. We could see it on our end, but it didn't go. So I emailed it to you directly, and you did all approve it by email,
Mhm.
but it does need to be approved in the board.
Okay.
And Heidi,
in the board, like online signatures, or like approve it right now with a motion?
No, we all signed it. We just need to approve it in a meeting.
in a meeting right now. And Heidi,
Right now.
sorry, not Heidi, would you just get that total for me? Since you are in there. All right, she is getting this for me. There's 22, yeah. Yeah, I don't see that one. She doesn't have that total. Okay, I think it is, I believe it's $7,644.32.
Okay. So I move to approve pay order 19 for said amount.
I second your motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right. Pay order 19 and 22 approved, Lori.
Great, thank you.
Okay, moving on to new business. Third draft of the budget. So I know, Lori, that this is probably, and I appreciate your patience, our scheduling has been challenging. So we are going off of pretty much the older version that you had. I don't know if you want to talk about the CLA, if you kind of have like a pitch you want to do, and then we can go through with some specific questions. Would that work all
Sure.
right?
Yeah, I really think that there was some discussion about changing the budget, and I think that that's probably the discussion that needs to happen. Now, if I can share my screen, I don't have permission to share it. So if you want to give me permission to share my screen, I'll pull the budget up. I'll just talk through it quickly, and then I know that there's been some ideas floated out there in response to the survey. One of them that's been floated around is having an after-school program versus doing the floors. So that we should talk about as a group. And let me just share. Okay, you should see the agenda on my screen right now. All right, and here is, all right, so you should see the budget, yes?
Yep.
Okay, so let me just talk quickly as to the budget itself again. This represents an operating school with 1.5 teachers and a 0.5 principal. So a teaching principal, same model that you've been running for many, many years. We added in some curriculum. So you'll see on this line here, 44, that that is up quite a bit. Definitely need to refresh the curriculum. And we added music at a half day a week. We added library media services a half day a week. And the rest is pretty much just, in line with the past year's budgets. Then we also discussed this transfer fund here, this transfer out, which we increased. Normally that's $10,000 that goes towards replacing the bus. And we increased that to potentially do the floors or do any type of maintenance work on the building. And then now, I'm hearing some discussion that maybe we want to, so there is some money in a capital fund already. And so maybe we want to use that money and disperse this money for some different types of programming. Is that what I'm understanding, Rory?
Yeah, so we just kind of wanted, given everything that's been going on with the school and that it's not open right now, and hearing some feedback about programming. And also, I'm under the impression that we hadn't heard about the floor until Jenna, that it didn't become an issue until recently. So the thought is that possibly maybe for this year and the next year, either split the cost of the flooring, half of it put aside this year, half of it put aside next year, and then take the extra money and put it towards programming. And that might look like after school, or, everyday after school program, or after school clubs, or something like that. And we can get creative, or, putting the floor off in entirety until next year or the year after. I guess it could go more than one way, but that's kind of the basic. It's just to kind of invest some of that money back into enrichment programming.
Okay, that's great, and a good conversation to have. We're getting down to the wire now with this budget. So I did glean some information from Wardsboro's after-school program to just kind of throw that out there to you and give you an idea of what their program looks like, just as an example of what we could do, and remember that the board doesn't necessarily need to design the program, right? You just really need to be able to fund the program. And when you hire an administrator, that's their responsibility to work with, parents and the board to define the program a little bit more. We just need to be able to have some idea of how to fund this if that's the direction the board wants to go in as a whole. So do you want to hear about Wardsboro's program just to kind of get an idea?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Great.
Please.
So Laughter is an after-school program offered at Wardsboro, and they offer it on Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, so 3 days a week, from 3 to 5 on normal school days, and they do it on early release days as well. They offer recess snacks, homework time, and then some educational programs ranging from knitting, soccer, pottery, and they even did rockets, I guess, last spring. So there's a lot of offerings that could happen. It really depends on who you can get for programming. That's and you up in Windham, you have a lot of volunteers, and you also have people with some skills that would probably come in to do some things. So their program runs about $53,000 for their attendance rate is about 80%. So that's for about 41 students. So I'm sorry, nope, 33 students. So that's like about $1,300 per student to run that, and it's all year, right? So it would be every school day. So if you sort of took that as a reference point and said, well, if 80% of the students of Windham, were to attend on a regular basis, it's 12 students. So that's like $15,000 or $16,000 that you could move into an after-school program. You might want to add some more upfront costs for supplies and that type of thing, because you're building the program from the ground up. So that's just an idea. What does the board think about that?
I think I really appreciate you looking into that. And I think that sounds like it could be something that would work well.
I do as well.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you said that we don't have to design it now. And this is very difficult without having, a principal in place that would be working towards this at the time. Right now it's, it seems kind of like a vague idea, but I appreciate the information that you brought. Helps a lot.
Yeah, so we could definitely reduce that 55,000 down. I would say let's, put in probably let's move $20,000 if this is the way the board wants to go into an after school program, and I'll rework the budget because it'll have its own section of the budget so that it's trackable and you can see. You'll be able to see if it's successful, and for the next budgeting cycle, if you want to increase it or decrease it, or because maybe you want more days than Wardsboro offers here at some point. So that would be my recommendation, is to move 20,000 into that programming.
Perfect.
All right.
And then is it also possible, I know I'd asked that before, Lori, to show what it would look like with 2 teachers, a part-time admin and part-time principal?
Okay, so I know Dan had mentioned it, but I don't remember it being mentioned in a board meeting. So I did sort of look at that though, and it could be actually a little less expensive to do that, depending on, whether you just brought in the minimum principal of what I believe it's 0.20, right, Bob?
Yeah, it'd be the equivalent of 1 day a week would be the minimum for EQS.
Right. So, doing that, it actually could be cheaper than what we have in the budget currently. But it depends on who you hire, right? So if you hire a two master teachers that are, have family plans, then it'll probably be a little bit more expensive than this. What we have in here, again, can be worked around, right? So you've got between the two lines, let me just kind of give you a rough idea. All right, so it's 130. And that's sort of what I do is I look at, what do we have in the budget already cost-wise that could probably, and these are really round figures.
Laura, while you're doing the math, just reiterate what you're saying, that they don't have to make a decision on that model now if the money is similar.
Right.
Really can't
Yeah,
bottom
that's
line.
what I wanted to know too, Bob, because
They can make the decision on the model prior to posting for positions.
Right. And you may have to, right? I mean, you may
Yeah.
have to do that anyway, right? Regardless of what was in the budget, because of the supply of teachers and
right.
so, you're talking like about or $200,000 of salary and benefits that are in here. So, you can change that model as we go without having to change the budget necessarily.
Okay, that's reassuring. I do have a question because I can't see the entire your entire document and I can't pull it up because I'm on my phone. How many hours are we allotting for counseling right now in this budget?
It's the same as it was previously. So it was a contracted service. And
3 hours a week it was.
Thank you.
Okay. We had come to the conclusion that that was not enough. Am I correct in saying that? So we were trying to get more hours that we couldn't get because there.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that was what we heard. Yep.
Yeah. So we may want to make sure that we allot for more than 3 hours.
Okay. So you could double that up, making it 6 hours, and again, just reduce that $55,000 down another $10,000.
Yeah. I think that's important.
Is that what the board what the board would like to do?
So how many hours a week would that be, are you saying, Lori? Is it only going to be like 6 hours?
You were at 3 for 10,000, or almost 11,000. So that would be 6 hours a week to double it is what I was thinking.
Can we do maybe like 10? Because I feel when we had 8 that parents were saying they didn't feel like it was enough.
Okay.
So just to see what that looks like, and I realize we may not even be able to get that availability, but if we can just see what that looks like.
Abby, the other thing is the more that you increase, the more likely you actually could find an actual employee rather than dealing with a contracted service as well, which might end up being less depending on the percentage time than the contracted service, because that's an hourly rate that they bill you for.
Oh, good point, Bob. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's helpful because it's going to get expensive, but necessary.
Yeah, and it could be shared if there's other part-time positions in the SU. You could maybe piece it together and have a shared position.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to highlight these, and I will look up and see, so we're talking, you want basically at least one full day a week. So 0.20 or a 0.25 even for an FTE. So I can sort of see what that looks like from a professional standpoint as well. An employee, and I'll just again move that using that 55,000. I'll reduce that and add it to the social work piece.
Okay.
Because we're probably, yeah, so 6. Yeah, so that would be another, basically 20. So talking around numbers now, but so that would reduce that line by 40,000 if we put 20 into the after school, and then just round ball add 20 to the social work line.
Okay. And it could end up being less if we can find an employee from another
Right.
building, I guess. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I would say to try to hold on to that reserve so that we can plan to do the flooring. Because if we plan to stay open and if people are happy with with how things are going forward, then that would be important to handle.
Okay. So is there anything else? So that kind of takes care of, that $55,000, separating it out, putting more into programming, and less into the operations at this point. But keeps you at the same total, which is, your budget is up significantly for totals, $123,000. So are you happy with that at this point, or is there anything else that you want to add? I don't think there's really a lot of flexibility other than that 55,000, but
Yeah.
And Lori,
So what is,
Lori, I want to clarify what Rory just said though. Were you saying, because it sounded like Lori is reducing that flooring allotment money to use in other programs, and then you just said something about still doing the flooring, Rory. Were you talking about in a future fiscal year?
Yes. But maybe
Okay.
putting that extra money into an account. But after looking at Lori's other screen, and now I'm thinking about that increased trigger. Do we have to worry about that for this year? Even like, do we need to decrease the budget in total to avoid any of these issues?
You're not going to get there. You're not going to get under the 10%. I think you just have to face that you are going to be under review. I mean, you would have to decimate this budget to get under that 10%. I think at the last I looked, it was 98. You'd have to pull $98,000 out of the budget. So everything that you've added basically would have to come back out.
Okay.
So I think that, nobody, because we don't know exactly what the review is going to look like, it's a little ominous, but I think that you just go with this at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's not frivolous in this, I don't think, but probably should have been looked at previously to avoid this now. But here we are. So,
can we talk about the food service and what's kind of been going on with that and what's being budgeted for that?
Sure. So the food service actually is a decrease from last year. So how the food service works, it has its own fund, and I'll pull up that budget in just a second. But here on line 116, this is basically what the general fund or the taxpayer fund is paying towards the food program. So your revenues for the food program are come from a couple of different sources, and so I've got that budget pulled up, and you can see the top line matches what's in the general fund to transfer over. It's what the taxpayers are contributing towards it, and then there are some state revenues and there's some federal revenues making up the food program. And so then the expenses that go with that is that we did increase, which I kept in this year, the administrative assistant who also did serving the food. and also the purchase of the food from West River. So you can see that's been decreased because now we also have a really much better idea of what it costs. And I did get West River to commit that they would only increase their cost by 4% this year. Last year was a larger percent increase based on the food costs and labor costs and that type of thing to prepare the food. But this year they will only be presenting you with a contract that is 4% more. Cost per pupil, right? Not 4% of last year's contract. Does that make sense, Abby?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And let me see. So there's the article, the surplus reserve. There is a deficit fund balance in the general fund.
Right. Okay. So I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to see if we wanted to wait to talk about that when Dan is back. I had sent you all an email about a late journal entry from our auditors. And so it goes back to actually 2022 on that warning. There was an article on that to move the surplus to the capital if there was a surplus, and there was a surplus in 22. So that entry had to be made. So making that entry, just basically it's all the same money. It's just where it sits now. And so making that entry exposes a deficit in the general fund. And there's two ways to handle it. You could just let it roll because we believe that there's going to be some amount of surplus this fiscal year in 24. Are we done? I can't see anybody, so I feel like I'm talking to there we go.
I'm here.
Okay. So you can just let it roll and it'll work itself out because there is a potential surplus this year. Or you can add the deficit. By law, you're supposed to add the deficit to the next year's budget, but you're supposed to do an audited deficit. We don't have the final audits yet. So there's two ways to handle that. So I think that from this perspective, at this late stage of the game, I don't really want to see you add anything more to your budget. And we've just, my first idea was maybe, that we use some of the 55,000 for programming and some of it to go towards that deficit. But I think at this point, we just let that deficit roll, and the surplus this year should wipe that out.
Okay. That makes
So,
sense.
Yeah, and you still do have that money in the capital. So that's where it sits. And for our next meeting, I will bring that to you where it shows you the accounting of that.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would be helpful for Daniel to hear as well. But it wouldn't, if we let it roll, it's not going to change anything in our budget, and we're not going to be penalized or anything in any way, basically.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay, it looks like we have a couple questions. First will be, I'm going to assume it's you, Russ, maybe Joyce coming, and then Michael Pelton.
No, it's Russ. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Russ.
Yes, we can.
Lori, did I hear you say that we have not had a report from the auditors yet, so the school board has not been able to approve the audit for last year's expenses?
Unfortunately, Russ, I'm I have a meeting next week with them to discuss why we don't have a final audit. We do have what they did send me over, which is where the late entry came from, was a draft of a short audit, which it's still in draft until I say okay, which I can do that and have it's what they call the short audit, which is basically the balance sheet. So I can have that for next meeting as well. But I am pretty dismayed as well. We had all of our documents in and ready to go a long time ago. So this is
Yeah, the reason I ask this is part of the school meeting minutes requires a acceptance of the auditors. And if you haven't looked at it, then the school board cannot accept it for the town meeting. And I just wanted to make this clear that it's something that in order to have it in part of the school board's meeting at the town meeting on March 9th, you have to have reviewed it, and so do members of the school board reviewed it and accepted in order for it to be in the minutes of the meeting for March 9th.
Is that what that article refers to? Because it sounds like I thought that article referred to the annual report, but you're saying
it refers specifically to the school board accepting the report of the school auditors on behalf of the town. That's the way it's worded. So that if you haven't received it and the members of the school board have not reviewed it and accepted it, they can't have that article in the school meeting.
Okay, that's not a typical article that I see on other board articles, but yeah, you're right. It can't be.
It's the detail that's important.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Russ. Michael Pelton?
Yeah, I just have a question regarding transfers to capital. I'm assuming that somewhere in the budget, we're still reserving money for the school bus. Is that correct?
Right. So, Michael, when we come back to this line here, this 55,000, we're gonna take 40 of it and move it into programming, what we just discussed. And the balance will still be transferred. And that can be, we can say it can be transferred to the school bus partially and the floor partially.
Okay, thank you. I believe that's a good thing to do, would be to make sure we designate some of those funds for replacement bus.
Yes, agreed.
There, now I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. So I do not see any further questions. So Lori, I'm not sure. Do you feel comfortable with what the board is asking at this point for the budget?
I do. Yeah, I appreciate the discussion. I think it's good discussion. It sounds like the board members are in agreement to make these changes to the budget, which I will have done for the next meeting so that you can go ahead and approve it and get it warned.
Excellent.
So just to clarify, we're not asking Lori to change the bottom line. We're just moving around some different buckets, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Lori.
No problem.
Thank you very much. So under new business, is this, I think we kind of covered all of those. Update on staffing, building maintenance. I don't know if we covered that.
No, and that references this school year, I'm thinking. Is that what you're asking? Are you asking about this school year?
So it's update on staffing, building maintenance that was on under for new business. So I'm not sure if that was discussing hiring somebody for the building, or what's kind of the status with that, or if this is talking about budget for that same position going forward.
Yeah, no, I think I mean I suggested after listening to your last meeting, there seemed to be questions about that position that you guys had initially approved to find someone at Greg's urging.
Oh yeah. Now I remember.
Yeah.
Greg said he was gonna
However,
post it. We don't know. We
yeah,
didn't get an update though.
yeah, no, we didn't get an update. And what ended up happening there is that Greg ended up working out with the current person who has done your
Oh,
custodian,
okay.
continue to
Great.
do that work with
Great.
the added potential of other folks if there was some project money available to do some
Mhm.
other projects.
Yeah. Okay.
But that your employee who you already have, instead of laying them off and doing something for the school closure, we just continued their employment to do
Oh, that's
that
good.
checking of the building.
Great. I appreciate
Excellent.
the update.
Thank you. So moving on, unless there's anything else, Lori, that you wanted to chime in about?
No, I think that it makes more sense to talk about tax rate impact next meeting.
I
As
agree.
move through
Yeah.
that.
We'll wait for Daniel, and so we're all there.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you very much. Moving along, Windham Elementary School property and security. So when I've gone to post the agendas, I have noticed there doesn't seem to be any computers. There seems to be a lot of stuff that's not in the building. And I'm wondering what would have happened to it, if anybody would know.
So I could tell you about the technology side of things, minus the television sets, which are still there. Computers and student machines were brought to Townsend for the use of the Windham students at Townsend. And the staff machines were brought back to the IT office at Windham Central, pending reallocation at a future time. So you guys pay your assessment for IT through the SU assessment. You don't have your own IT budget per se for equipment of that nature. It all comes through the IT assessment as part of the superintendent's budget. So the Windham Central IT department has brought that stuff back to update it, get it cleaned up, get ready, and get it repurposed. But obviously, when you guys choose to reopen and you have staff start, they'll be reallocated with new machines at that time.
Okay. And then like the
I think the same thing
microscope.
for. So the microscope was actually borrowed from Leland and Gray, I believe, when Marco started. I could be wrong about that, but I know he borrowed some equipment from Bruce Whitman, a teacher at Leland and
There
Gray.
was a bunch of science kits, and it was just very concerning. It seems like a lot of stuff is boxed up, and I just wanted to, if we could maybe make the board more aware of what's going on.
I know a lot of the curriculum materials that Jen had brought in after Jen's departure, some of which had been newly ordered and some of it was still in its packaging, we did bring back to central office to store because we didn't want to see that disappear, and have that ready for implementation when the building is reopened.
Okay, good. That you answered my next question. If that was going to be held on to so we can use it. With that, if we have that already, does that help us in the curriculum financial department at all, or is that just extra?
No, I think the money that was put into the budget was the materials that were not able to be purchased this year. So because you guys have multiple grades in multiple curriculum areas, we were able to kind of piece some stuff together to kind of get the subs started with it under Jen's direction. But it was not what I would call exhaustive in its breadth around the grade levels or the subject areas.
Okay.
So that the additional money that's in your budget is to kind of make sure that we have that at a larger scale for all grade levels, and teacher guides and all those materials.
Great.
Yep.
Thanks.
Russ has a question. Am I muted?
No,
Nope.
Russ.
I have to unmute myself. There seems to be an elephant in the room that's being ignored. There was a petition submitted to the board and to the clerk of the board, and I haven't heard any comment about it, either in correspondence or anything else. And I know that Mr. Oppenheimer or Ottinger was consulted today, so I'm wondering what the status is of the petition.
So that is not on the agenda. That will be on the agenda when we have our February 1st meeting, as there's multiple articles that I think we have to go through as well. So that's when that will be addressed.
So you're acknowledging receipt of the petition
That
as
there
the chair of the
is
school board.
that the petition was received, yes, but not sure if that's what you're.
That's what I'm referring to, and the town clerk has not received the return receipt request that was sent with it.
Oh, it's interesting.
Oh, I didn't know there was a.
You need to sign that and send it back to the town clerk.
Did you even get that, Abby? I only got an email,
No, so
so I'm not sure what you're.
It was mailed return receipt requested from the post office,
To
and there's a
who?
green card that you have to sign receiving it.
Well, who
And the
was it
town
mailed
clerk
to?
the town clerk has not received it yet.
Okay.
So who was it mailed to?
It was mailed to Abigail Pelton, return receipt requested.
Oh, okay.
Okay, well, I will keep my eye out for that. No, I have not received that, Russ. So, and so then security, moving along with the same subject here, unless there's any other, I don't see any other hands. So the security and the keys, so is there a way, Bob, that we can get you to have the collection of keys? I know Rory and Daniel need them, and I'm not sure.
I have a key.
You do have a new, they changed the lock, so you have a new key?
No, I have an old key. I didn't realize locks were changed.
Yeah, we before Glory left, she took an audit of the keys. I believe that the outstanding keys, I believe Sally Newton still has one. I believe you had one, Abby, and then there were several at the SU level, and of course Paul Wyman has one. We had Carla West keep hers because she had materials up there she wanted to bring to Townsend and share back and forth. And I believe we got Marco's back. So yeah, they're all accounted for, if that's what you're asking. Are you looking for additional ones to be dispersed?
I would like that Rory and Daniel have keys, and I think that if the key list could be sent to myself. So while we are kind of in renovation mode, I think we can, figure out who really requires a key at this time and
Put it in the
go from
binder.
there.
Yeah, so I have
What's
that
that?
list at the office. I can get that to you next week.
But I was just saying we could put
Perfect.
it in the binder. Okay, so the key that I have does not work, correct?
Correct.
Depends how
Okay.
long you've had it. If you've gotten it in the last,
I
4
got
months.
it. I probably got it in the spring.
So yeah, that is not
Yeah.
working.
Okay, do you want it back or should I just dispose of
You
it?
can put that in the trash.
Okay. Will do.
And same thing with the security, if that could also get transferred over to myself as well.
What do you mean the
consider-
security, Abby?
So whatever whatever is there for the security stuff, to just make sure the board has access to that.
Are you talking about cameras?
The security system there. So yes, whatever is in place, without getting into too much security talk that probably shouldn't be public, but just that type of information. Keys, the key list, and what is in place for security and how we as a board access it during this time.
I see. Is it like a building? Well, we should probably have a building security policy, which would include all of that.
Yeah, I can tell you, all the buildings' security systems are all the camera systems are all tied to the SU servers.
Okay.
So that's accessed through the IT servers in the WCSU office at Leland and Gray. That's true for all the buildings that
excellent.
have cameras. We don't typically have board members having access to that. That's
Nope,
typically,
Yeah.
that's fine. I thought it was I didn't understand that, so that makes a lot more sense. And
Oh, just that
nope,
like
I think
somebody
that
had
that's fine.
access to make sure that they
Yeah.
were,
Just-
nothing
yeah,
crazy was going on.
Yeah, I didn't know
Okay.
where that left off. If staff was
Yeah,
not
no.
in school and needed to have it, I was just going to say we'll take that on. So
Yeah, no, staff did not have access to that at the building level. No, and there's
Okay,
no
that's good.
server on site.
But somebody like monitors, I guess. Or
Well,
I don't know
again,
how it works.
looked at if there's a challenge or for an insurance claim or for a student, whatever. Yeah,
Okay.
we have it available, but it's not something that's monitored. in that
Right,
way.
right, right. But occasionally, or does it like alert you if there was some kind of issue? I don't know if it's tied to like for a smoke alarm or something, for example. Does that alert the security system
Well, so
at the building
the
level?
fire alarm system is a different system than the camera system. So
Oh,
that's monitored by the Key Mutual Aid dispatch.
okay.
So that's a different system entirely.
Well, that's good. At least that's monitored.
Yeah. And the inspections
Okay.
will still all be done, and that's part of what
Okay.
Paul, I mean, Greg is overseeing all that with him as well to ensure that
Great.
happens.
Great. I'm glad that we still have Paul.
excellent. Any further discussion on those two subjects? All right. So it is 7:31 p.m. I motion to adjourn the meeting. Can I get a second?
I second your motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all very much for coming. It's a good group of folks showed up, so appreciate you
Thank
all
you.
for especially a Friday night. So and Rory, be safe. Getting home.
Thanks.
Have a good
Thanks,
weekend.
Bob.